One of Paul's key understandings is that when we die to ourselves, we become in Christ. We are now in Christ. In fact, I would encourage you to read Ephesians chapter 1, verses 3 through 14, and count the number of times that Paul uses the preposition in with something referring to Christ, like in Christ, in Him, in the Son, in His Son, all of those kinds of ideas. Because being in Christ changes everything about us. In yesterday's video, I talked about what it meant to be baptized and to be raised with Christ, to be united and walk in newness of life. On Monday, I talked about the idea that Christ has given us commands, that God has given us commands, and it should dictate how we live, and how the law is a part of that. Well, today I want to bring those two ideas together a bit, because if we die to ourselves and yet we are to live, how are we to do that? And Paul begins to answer that question for us in Romans, beginning in Romans chapter 6. So first, we have life. Specifically, in Romans chapter 6, verses 1 through 7, we have a life that is not bound to be a slave to sin any longer. Christ has set us free from that tyranny of sin and death, as I mentioned on Sunday, and we can now choose to live for Him because we are found in Him. Again, I mentioned on Sunday that we do still continue to sin. The presence of sin is still in this world. We will still be tempted. We still will fall prey to that temptation. We will choose sin in this life. But having died to ourselves, having been united with Christ, Romans 6:5, we are not bound to sin any longer. We do not have to sin because sin is no longer our master. Jesus is. Now, if you know me, you know that I think words matter. And even prepositions like with and in matter. Therefore, as I see it, to be justified with Christ, as I see it, to be with Christ is to be justified. To be with Christ is to be justified. That we are made right with God because of what Jesus has done. To be in Christ, then, is the process of sanctification. And we're going to get more into this as we go further into Romans, but again, justification is that moment of salvation. Sanctification begins the moment after justification. It is the process of growing to become more like Jesus, to be conformed into the image of His Son, as God had Paul write in Romans 8:29, as we know that reference. So to do that, to become conformed to that image, we become more like Him. That is the process of sanctification. It is being sanctified. Thus, we must have the image of God that has not been tainted put in with us, or us put into that image of God that has not been tainted because of the sin that has already tainted us. Now, even though we are made righteous, even though justification means that we have been made righteous, we are still not complete. In one sense, we have already been resurrected with Jesus. Paul makes that clear that we have already raised up with Jesus in verses 4 and 5. But on the other hand, we are still waiting for the full consummation of our faith when we will be forever with Jesus in eternity. Therefore, although we have been resurrected with Him, another reality, another level, another layer to that resurrection exists, that moment when we will be fully with Him for the rest of time. So if we are in Christ now and we are being sanctified now, that does not mean that our sin, our sinful past, our sinful life will still not haunt us, will still not tempt us, will still not make us fail today. The reality of overcoming that waits for eternity beyond this life. The process of becoming like Jesus, or as the ESV says, united with Him, is similar to the idea of being grafted into a tree, a new part of a plant being grafted into a tree. It would be similar also to Jesus' statement in John chapter 15, specifically verse 5, where he says, I am the vine and you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. We have to graft our life into him so that we might have the sustenance to continue to live ourselves. We cannot have life without Jesus. We cannot have purpose without Jesus. We are not complete without Jesus. Jesus became man so that ultimately we could become like him. Have you ever thought about that? He became like us so that we could become like him. And in becoming like him, we will be with him in more ways than you might have ever considered. One of the commentators that I read this week, Leon Morris, wrote some profound things, and I will end this video with these few ideas. He says that we are not born with Christ, nor are we baptized with Christ, but for those who choose Jesus, we are crucified with him, verse 6. We died with him, 2 Timothy 2:11. We were buried with him, Colossians 2:12. Also, Romans 6:3. We were made alive with him, Ephesians 2:5 and Colossians 2:13. We were raised with him and made to sit with him in the heavenly realms, Ephesians 2:6. We are co-heirs with him, 8:17. Romans 8:17. We share his glory, Romans 8:17. And we will reign with him, 2 Timothy 2:12. So again, we were not born with Jesus. We were not baptized with Jesus, but we were crucified, we died, we buried, we were made alive, we are raised with him, we will be with him in the heavenlies, we are co-heirs with him, we share his glory, and we will reign with him. So as if I need another reason, or 8 other reasons, as there might be listed here, that list makes me want to be with him and in him, so that I, and hopefully you feel the same way, can be more like him.